I have decided it is PPP. The viewers don't need to understand why. You and I know P squared. No, that's 2. PPP. Okay, we'll work on it. You have been with the love of your life for 28 years. Tell me how you met, and tell me why, even after you formed an army of us to go to Springfield to demand the right, the basic human right to marry the love of your life, why you chose not to.
Well, so I met Jean Albright. She had been in the Air Force 20 years.
Hi, Jean. Okay, go
She'd been in the Air Force 20 years before we met.
Oh.
Had we met when she was in the military, she would have run the other way. I wrote a fiction book, and what actually was made into a play called Half-Life that was based on if we had met, fiction, totally fiction, if we had met during the first Gulf War when she was a military spokeswoman at Great Lakes Naval Base and I was covering Great Lakes Naval Base. We did not meet. But anyway, so she was out a year or 2 from the military at that point, and the gay community was like this whole new world. And initially, she was like really excited to go with me to all the events. And she's like, "Oh, I'll carry your camera." Right. We called her my camera carrier.
Oh.
CC was her nickname.
Okay, CC.
But that lasted like 6 months because she got really like, "How do you go to all these events?" But she then started to work for the paper and eventually was doing our internet website, which was in the mid '90s. We were one of the early folks to go online. And I did fight for marriage equality. I was the main organizer of the March on Springfield in 2013 when our state legislature was kind of dilly-dallying and not voting on it, even though it was Democrats running on everything. But I was doing that like I was fighting for the right for gays to be in the military. I'm against the military-industrial complex, but if you're going to have jobs, you need to be equally providing them to everybody, including those that need the military, like Jean did, to get out of Ohio and have a better life. So the marriage issue, especially if you have children or financial reasons to be together, it needs to be equitable. I think this country shouldn't give benefits to people based on being with a partner. Half the country's discriminated against in that way in terms of their Social Security benefits, if they're single, and all that stuff. So I'd really rather the government get out of the business of validating relationships. But where it matters most is in financial cause, if there's a reason to, or children, or whatever it might be. So there could be a day when Jean, it makes sense for us to be married because of healthcare or financial reasons. But other than that, my main reason initially was that I didn't want her to inherit my debts. So I'm out of debts now, and
so now we can revisit. Yes.
We can revisit this, Jean. We can revisit this, but it really was. I was worried about that kind of thing, and also she has military benefits, which we weren't together while she was in, so I wouldn't get them. So if there were reasons, we would do it. But to me, it's not about the romance. A piece of paper does not keep you together. Yeah. I have been to many gay divorces, and so it can get really brutal. Yeah. And so you got to really think about it, whether you're straight, gay, or otherwise. That a piece of paper is not the reason. You need to have other reasons, I think, involved.
Yeah, and the wedding isn't the reason. Right. You should be planning for the marriage.
Right.
I love that, though, because, again, I think there's a tendency to overcomplicate things that were, by divine order, made uncomplicated. And you just said, I don't need to want to be, and I love that. You're like, it's a machine, and I'm against it, and but if you're going to do it, everyone's going to have, which is that, it's the overcomplicating of things. I don't know that I want to get married, and there's strategic reasons, but you should have a right, and there's logic. Because for me, what helped me to, now I want to be married. But spending so much of my life where it's not an option, I didn't even leave room for it, which for me made me undervalue relationships generally. The whole, I'm more traditional than I want to be. But for me, I want my husband, when I'm 80 years old, even if my family's acting a stone nut, I want him to have rights to come into that room and not be treated after 40 years of a life together as an afterthought.
Well, let me just say what's really the most important thing about marriage equality is our families. They don't understand pride parades. They don't understand most of the stuff we do, Sunday brunch, whatever. But when I started to go to gay weddings and there were kind of resistant parents there, within 3 hours, they were dancing, they were partying, and they were getting us.
Yes.
And they really saw us through their own traditions, and they were changed.
Yes.
So it was a social construct that needed to be changed.
Yes.
Laws don't laws don't change people. It's that when they experienced a gay wedding, they were changed.
When love became love,
Yep.
and you can, again, it's a part of what we're doing here. When you can humanize people and you can see yourselves in others. I see my family and your family, even in the crises you shared earlier. That is how my family would have responded or has responded. We just get in there, and then when it's over, we go, "You all right? You all right?" But that's your posse, So that resonates. So the more opportunities we have, even in the media, to show the love that, look, I've met some quirky married couples, straight, gay, black, white, brown, and I go, and then I've met, but the first time you're at a wedding and you feel love, you can close your eyes. It can be two men, two women, and you feel what that feels like in the family. You're just happy for them. And that it's the construct. So you and I might be getting married. We'll go to each other's wedding. Oh, PPP. Oh, I come. And like my family, you don't have to invite me. Try it if you want to. Try it if you and Gina learn. I want to go back to the reader. There's so much to cover through, but you have had, and I talked about it, you are an icon. You established a legendary legacy publication. And then you went, that's not enough. That doesn't feel right. This paper, The Reader, is about 2 days, literally 2 days from going under. And walk me through why? Why? How and why?
What's interesting is the year before I had been starting to think about what's next, because I had been doing Windy City Times for more than 30 years, Gay Press more than 30 years. And I was thinking, do I want to teach? Do I want to something else? And I actually I did apply for a job that was actually an endowed chair on LGBT media, but they changed it. They changed it to not be that. So it became something else. I didn't get that job, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But around the same time, The Reader ran a really racist cover in the spring of early part of 2018, and I called the publisher, Edwin Eisendrath, and I said, I could come in and try to fix The Reader. Let me see if it's savable, because I could tell it was dying by the page count and everything. Okay. And so long story short, he basically offered to me for $1, and I said no, because I knew it was losing $1 million a year, and I didn't have any money. I could have the time, but not the money. Right. A few months later, another deal had fallen through. The union called me and said, would you think of coming and doing the paper? There might be owners, there might be two people with money that would give you a ramp. And so that's what happened. I was hired by LZ Higginbottom's representative, Eileen Rhodes, who's still the board chair of The Reader, and another woman who was representing Len Goodman, Jessica Stites. They hired me because they knew I had community media history. I had a business plan that I had developed for Edwin earlier in the year, so the timing just worked. And as long as I had some ramp, and they gave each about $1 million. Okay. But by the time the ramp was near end, I was like, you guys, I need to convert this to a nonprofit, or you're going to shut it down, and you don't want to be the bad guys. So they gave me the opportunity to start a nonprofit that eventually bought it for $1 from them. But it was 4.5 years through COVID and other machinations that it almost didn't make it either. Yeah. But it did, and I'm grateful for the original owners, the staff, incredible staff that has made it viable now.
And you've just began the handoff to a new publisher, and you are giving him a beautiful on-ramp, and you're staying on the bid to make sure he's fully supported. Yep. And once you finish that, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, going, I've taken you as far as I can, good luck. What's next?
I mostly want to write. I have not been able to write much at all during these last 4.5 years. I want to get back to some books. I do feel a clock ticking. My mom died at 63. I just turned 60. My stepdad died at 60. So I feel I want to make sure I chisel things out of my brain that I know and remember. Right. I want to do my 40th anniversary in the Gay Press is next year. So I want to have a memoir out by then. I want to do something about my mom.
We shall celebrate you here.
Yeah, and I have many.
Oh, your mom, yes.
Yeah, definitely about my mom. And then a whole lot of community people that I would love to write about.
Good. Tracy Baim, PPP. This is the end of our this time together. I can't thank you enough, and I my words are probably just repeating, but then I always tell people, just trust what you're sensing from me. I just run out of words, but it means the world. Right now, we are at this inflection point. We are, and it is different, and this is the time where we are all, and our audience is resonating with it, we are looking for a community, we are looking for a connection, we are looking for seeing ourselves and others, and part of what that is the fearlessness for us to share our vulnerabilities, because that becomes the on-ramp where we can do it for each other. So my friend, my sister, thank you for being here. You'll be back. That's it, though. Anybody wants to applaud for us? Okay, bravo. Thank you. Thank you. I like it. It's nice. It's a small but mighty,
Yes.
mighty applause.